What up, everybody? Welcome to the IAG Thursday Thing. This thing we do every Thursday, where we all kind of hang around, have a little kumbaya moment. Especially with the turmoil in the world right now, we are not bringing that any of that in here. We're gonna have our weekly little online parking lot meet, and hang out with some cool people, talk Subarus, and have a good time. So that's what we're doing here. Um, So it's man, we're getting to that time of the year. Stuff's starting to get a little crazy. A lot of people window shopping and waiting for the end of the month for Black Friday and all of that. So it's been a little crazy around here, but once again, I'm joined. He's kind of in the background. I don't know if we're gonna hear from him too much, but executive producer Jordan, he's back there, kind of flipping switches, making sure this records, and he edits it up. So got to thank him. Warranty again will not be here this week, but he should be here next week, and that'll be a pretty good one too. And then Randy also goes out of his way, makes these epic thumbnails for us, and the guy we had on today sent us a pretty damn epic thumbnail. I'm like, hey, I need a thumbnail of you doing something cool, and he sent me a thumbnail of him doing something pretty damn cool in a Subaru. Something you don't see a whole lot in the Subaru too. This week I'm really stoked. I think this actually kind of worked out really well because this week is SEMA, okay? And for those of you who don't know, SEMA is not just some giant car show in Las Vegas. SEMA is actually a industry convention for the automotive aftermarket. SEMA is actually a kind of like our lobbying body in the automotive aftermarket. So a lot of business gets done at SEMA. It's really not just a car show, no matter what Chip Fu says. So he's out at SEMA. Usually a lot of really cool products and stuff get dropped. So we get to talk to him a little bit about himself, but we also get to talk about SEMA a little bit with somebody who's actually literally on the floor right now, which is pretty cool. So this week, we have Nick Nazzaro from SubiMods. So I want to make sure I've got this right. You are the owner and founder of SubiMods, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. But yes, I am the owner. We, based out of Connecticut, all Subaru. If you haven't worked with us before, well, you'll learn a little about us today, and hopefully we get a chance to work with you, everyone, in the future.
Yeah, and I've been kind of stoked to chat with you for a while, but man, you sent me a sick picture. So
Yeah.
you're the only, everybody else sends me pictures of like them standing near Subaru, maybe working on it a little bit, and you're like, this is me drifting this BRZ. And I'm like, oh shit. It's a great pick.
No, it's and what's cool about it is the history that goes along with it. My brother-in-law actually got me into it, and that's actually who you see in the 240 chasing me. So me and him finally got to link up and kind of do that family tandem drift, and it's been good to get into a hobby of cars. There's a lot of bad hobbies you can have in the world, but I don't think cars are one of them.
Yeah, it's healthy and not all at the same time. It's as expensive as hard drugs, but it could be worse, right? It's something you can do with your kids and then still talk about it at church.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of it, right? You can still go to church on Sunday.
That's true. Um, so you're let's just start with drifting.
Yeah.
Your brother-in-law got you into drifting? Is that what it did? Drifting happen first, or did starting SubiMods and messing around with that happen first? Tell me about the drifting. Let's hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, so SubiMods, I've been doing this for 11 years. I started right out of high school at 12 years now, as I'm 30. So I started at 18. The big thing for me with the drifting was, I got into it because I was like, all right, like this seems like I could do it. We had a company BRZ, so I was like, this is cool. I'll throw some burners on it. I'll go out for a weekend, have a good time. That ultimately led to me crashing in the outside wall of the bowl at Thompson. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, now I just have a dedicated drift car. So then we started really getting into all right, let's make the car do well, let's actually make it perform. Because if you've ever drifted one of these, they're not that great from the factory.
Well, they're not. This is one of the things a lot of people don't seem to understand about the BRZ. It was designed to be fun, but it's a parts bin car. The
Oh yeah,
chassis itself is really good, but the rear end literally was pulled like right out of an '08 WRX. So it's got a ton of anti-squat geometry in
yeah.
it, and it ain't great. There's a lot that needs to be done. Um,
Oh yeah.
so what did you guys end up doing as far as modifications to make it better for
So
drifting?
yeah, so when I put the car in the wall, if you've ever been to Thompson, it's an old Thompson Motorsports Park. It's an old NASCAR bowl, and it has a really bad transition to kind of the flat to the upper kind of bowl area. And
Okay.
the car had a really bad tendency to snap. Like, I mean, you'd get it sideways, you'd have it there, and then you'd be like, uh-oh, off the throttle, and it would just do a 360, and that's how I backed it into the wall. So my first goal was like, hey, let's get the car to, let's get the diff to work right. So we did a,
Sure.
Cusco two-way. That really changed the car, made it almost very easy to drive, but
Yep.
the angle, and obviously in drifting, getting the wheels pointed the wrong way when the car's sideways is kind of important. And the car didn't have a lot of angle. It would shallow up really bad. So we did a whole GK Tech front setup. So a lot of angle, a lot of caster, and then a really good amount of toe to kind of get the car to auto rotate because the electric steering rack in this car is something to. I could wish I could write a letter to the designers of that and be like, I don't know what you guys were thinking with this, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
What are you gonna do? So the
Yeah.
diff was huge though. The diff that's something we just did that in Jeremy Bailey's car. We went to a 1.5 way OS Geiken in his Club TR car, and
Yeah.
that was transformative. I can only imagine how much better that would be in a drift car.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not like super technical by any means, so like, I kind of explain it very simply, but that car was an on and off switch. As soon as you
Yep,
put your foot in the gas, it had all of the, the diff would do what it needed to. It was great, but as soon as your foot came off the gas, it was like, all right, either I'm gonna die or I have like about 1.2 seconds to get my foot back on the throttle, and it was just I often equate it to like, why do you want to play the game on 100? You're never going to learn it if you play it at that level. It's just too
that's true.
hard.
Yeah, if you just immediately die trying to play
Yeah.
Street Fighter on full kill on full speed and you don't even know how to do a fireball.
Yeah. And it's like, you get really angry, because with racing, you don't have all day. It's not like it's a free range to go out there and just keep going. So, like,
Yep.
you have 30 minutes a session and, if you spend 25 minutes spinning out, it just gets very, very annoying.
Yeah. No, I get that. So you got the diff to start working for you guys. Did were you still just running like stockish power? Like what did you end
Yeah,
up doing
so
from there?
at that point, the car so we did when the car hit the wall, it broke the entire rear suspension. So trailing toe, all the arms were gone.
Yeah,
So that was a nice excuse to, put entire adjustable setup in the back from Cusco, get the wheels as straight as possible, like almost 0 degrees of camber. I want every bit of tire on the ground, and then do some subframe spacers to help correct kind of the position of the bars. Breaking axles in these things is wicked common. The Gen 2s have a little bit better CV, but it's not enough. And
yeah,
especially when you really air out the tires or run something grippy,
yeah,
they just snap in a second. So once we did that, I kind of plateaued in the car. I felt like it was like, okay, I can wheel it, I'm linking it, I'm feeling it. But you get in a tandem and you put your foot down and you're like, okay, what's going on here? I'm about to be in
yeah,
a 6 car pileup because this thing just doesn't move. So
yep.
that was when we were like, all right, let's turbocharge it. We went with HKS's kit, the GT3 RS kit. And man, I have to give him some credit because that kit in that car, that thing is like it's
Well,
the
I mean
most fun I've driven.
the FA24 is really good.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
gate
really
pressure.
good. I mean people complain about the oil slush issues, but you overfill it and you take care of it. It's solid. So that engine's been okay for you?
And we had our first failure last week with it. It blew the inner spark plug tube seals on the inside of the valve cover.
Oh, okay.
It cracked one of them, which I've never seen that before, but
That's a weird
apparently
one.
It's pretty common. So, and it's nothing that the turbo kit or the driving style could have done. It's just probably, the factory defect to some extent.
Just one of those Subaru things.
Yeah, it's just a stupid problem to have, but the guys down at EFI Performance, used to be EFI Logics in Bethel,
Yep.
they're who we use as our kind of our technical like motorsports partner, and we were doing demos with Odie Bakchis, the pro drifter, and then Bucky Lassick was out there, and
Yep.
they're like, "Hey man, the thing's leaking oil. Should we pull it off?" I'm like, "No way." I'm like, "It's a Subaru. If it ain't leaking or smoking, we have a problem."
Yeah.
So,
Well, it was actually significantly more of a problem.
it was, yes, it was quite significant. They actually made me stop driving it because they were like, "All right, like, let's not have a car fire go on at our track day."
No shit. Yeah, so that was at your track day. You just recently ran a track day, and you had all sorts of people there. Like you just said, you had Bucky, you had a pro drifter. I think I saw Devin there. There
Yep.
was, yeah, you guys had a bunch of. I'd love to come up to one of those someday. Just open
It's
track fuck around day. That'd be a riot.
It was cool. We partnered with Staggering Motorsports Festival, which is a friend, Mike Lynch. He runs the drift events as well up here. And we were like, "Hey, we want to do a Subaru day, but we want to do it different. Like, it's all motorsport." So we had drifting going on the skid pad. We had autocross in the morning, time attack, and then we had this really cool Outlander course. And like people were all about it. It was cool to see it, because everyone kind of thinks it's
Yeah.
Subarus are just big car show people, community. And I'm like, no, there's still some people who drive, we're
You'd
still
be
out there.
surprised. Overlanding is actually it's like this sub community within Subarus that they go pretty hard. There's a
Yeah.
pile of them up in Wisconsin. I know out in Colorado it's massive.
I mean, out here it's huge. I was looking at some of these guys and I couldn't believe what they were going through. Like I'm like, you guys are really pushing these things. And they're like, "Oh man, this is light for us." I'm like, wow.
I mean, hey, I love seeing people do all sorts of crazy shit with their, especially Subarus. I love it. Like, do stuff. If you got a bad idea, do it.
Yeah, and that's what, a lot of people see us drifting the BRZs and they're like, "Man, like, that's a really expensive drift car." And I'm like, "Look, like you're gonna spend the money one way or the other. You might as well have fun when you spend the money."
And not only that, and there's a little bit to, let's be real, okay? Let's not bullshit here. Okay, you need to stay a little on brand. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I got to do the same thing for a lot of things. I love this community. It's given me everything. Okay, but I'm not gonna lie. I've had to make some particular choices to stay on brand.
Yes. Yes. And that
Yeah.
was what my brother-in-law, he was hammering me for years. He's like, "Get a 240, get a 240." I'm like, "Dude, I can't get anything
No.
other than Subaru. Like, I can't do it." Like, this same
Yes.
as you. This community has brought me, you know, joys beyond, I mean, blessed is the only way I could say it as to what
It's a
this
great way of putting it. Yep.
and how does that work if I'm coming out every weekend hopping in a 240? Does it drift better? Maybe, right? Like, yeah, let's not even
The
argue. It's
reality of it
definitely
is too, is there's the reason it quote unquote drifts better, um, is there's,
there's less
20,
there.
30 years of development of pushing those
Mhm.
cars for drifting. Everybody knows how to make those setups work. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And a lot of
Yeah.
people just dove out of BRZs right away when, they especially there was a huge, what is it, the FT86 boards, the
Yeah.
forums. They're
Yep.
really interesting because when I went into them originally, I was expecting it to be like a whole lot of Nasiak looking for something different.
Yeah.
And you'd maybe get a sprinkling of some maybe Miata guys. Totally wrong. It's half two, or well, I shouldn't say half. It's 240 and S2000 guys, majority of where those guys actually came from, and a very small sprinkling of Subarus. So they came in not knowing how to Subaru, but
Yeah.
they had all this preconceived concepts from these other vehicles and tried to apply it to these cars, and it just really didn't work right. Finally,
No,
they're
and
starting to figure out how to Subaru.
well, it's tough too. Like, so when Odie came out, and obviously he kills it, man. The guy I got to drive with him at Laguna in the passenger seat during the drift demo, and I'm like, we're coming over the hump at Laguna at like 105, and I'm like, dude, like let me out. Like I don't like being in the passenger
Brother.
and he had a really rough morning when he started driving the cars, and he came in and he's like, man, these cars drive horrible. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, they're just bad. And I'm like, really? I was like, this is all I've ever driven. So like they feel pretty good to me. And throughout the day he
For
made some
drifting,
really
I could see that, but this you'd hear the same thing out of somebody trying to drift an S2000 out of the box too.
Yeah, and I think, throughout the day, he kind of figured it out, tire pressures are huge with drifting.
Mhm.
The softness of the suspension is another big thing, that he was playing with. And then the toe was the biggest one. I mean, once we got the toe in a position where the wheel could auto rotate a little bit,
Yep.
once you're really controlling that angle with your foot, which out of the box is almost impossible to do with that car.
Yeah.
But even like driving style, like, I don't know a lot about the hierarchy of Formula D and how it works, but there's a element called commitment where, they don't take their foot off the throttle once they get in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you can't redline this thing. Like Subarus don't work like that. You gotta like bring it up to
You're gonna have
to
to
the red
feather it,
line
my
and
dude.
kind of hold it there. Like you're not just
Yeah.
putting your foot down. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's different, but then like, what was it 2 weeks ago, I was at Tail of the Dragon with my 13 BRZ, okay?
yep,
So it's still 2-liter, just a bunch of NA mods and a whole lot of suspension. Doesn't
yep,
even have great tires on it. I'm on 255 615K pluses from Falcon. So it's not like
yeah,
it's a great tire.
decent, but
D I was running with the car's way more expensive than I had any right. C6 Vets, like the guy who was leading us was in a C6 Vet. It was Renfest, so there was Porsches everywhere, and I could
yep,
run neck and neck with these guys because power was kind of taken out of the equation. It works really well for that application, but yeah, if you're trying to slide, oh, that car was
that's
not thought out for that at all. It could
no.
get built to that, I think, but you would have to rethink a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, the power steering is probably the biggest thing. On the Gen 2,
Mhm.
there's no way to control the rack. So like on the Gen 1s, you can install that electric power steering controller, which basically tricks the ECU into thinking the car is going 5 miles an hour. So it really softens the wheel up and makes it really easy to kind of, like actually throw it. But on the Gen 2, there's no way to do that. So we have to work with this issue of where, when you start to actually speed up in that car, the wheel gets heavier, which is almost
Yeah.
exactly what you don't want in drifting
'Cause
is
you're trying to throw that wheel.
yeah, you're trying to throw it and the car's
Yeah,
like, "No, that's not gonna happen," and I'm sitting in there like Popeye trying to manhandle the wheel around, getting my hand ripped out every time. It's rough.
yeah, that would be rough, actually, I'm thinking about that now, that'd be hard. But, I
It's not
mean,
easy.
that shit's coming, I'm real interested. I wonder what controls that. I wonder if they're getting that signal from the ECU, and
Yeah,
Link
so
should be
I'm
I don't know if you heard, Link should be dropping an ECU for the 2nd gens here real soon, and they might have even announced it at SEMA.
I'm gonna they're on the list to if when I kind of get my brain back on today after this to kind of go talk to because I want to shut it off. Like I just don't know if shutting it off would be because I think you can do it with the Toyota TechStream software I've read and the
Okay.
Mongoose tables, but I don't know if shutting it off means it's no assist or it's 100% assist because shutting it off and having like literally like the heaviest
There's
wheel
gotta be
possible.
some way to fake whatever vehicle speed signal that's going to wherever and
Yeah.
fake it's seeing a vehicle speed sensor signal, you would assume that's how it's doing this because it's getting heavier the faster you go. So
Yeah.
there's gotta be some way to fake that. There's gotta be. That it would just lock it at like 5 mile an hour, which is really what you're looking for.
Yeah, and the Gen 1 does have it, so I have 2 drift cars, we do a Gen 1 and a Gen 2, both turboed, and the Gen 1 has it, and, it's literally just that. You're basically just, taking the input of the speed sensor that they use and just literally hot wiring it, for
Have you
lack of
ever
a
had a
better word.
situation where, the power steering, the electric power steering in the Gen 1. I'm not sure how much different the Gen 2 is. I haven't dug into it too much, but it'll almost get like overloaded and then like kind of freak out and turn off for a split second.
I haven't run into that, but I know some people who've had some really dangerous experiences with those cars drifting where, for a second the wheel just disappears. Like you're like, "Oh, where did this go?" And it's like a dead spot, it feels like. But
Kinda.
it, what's weird is I've never had an issue with it, but everyone I talk to like says they have, and I don't know, like
Okay.
fingers
It
crossed
that
I
makes
don't
me
have an
feel
issue.
better that I'm not crazy because, like, I've ran into that a few times in my car, usually on track or, like I said, 2 weeks ago at Tail the Drag, and I ran into it a couple of times, and when it happened, it wasn't, like, super dangerous, but it was just in a really high load situation where it kinda felt like maybe I hits like a freak out in the ECU or whatever. It's like, "Whoa, the load is too high. We're gonna cut power steering for a split second." So, like, it gets heavy and then comes right back. Uh, I've had that a couple of times, and I'm talking, like, real fast, 10th of a second kinda stuff. But
Huh,
it's enough to,
I can
like,
see how
make
that
you
would be
move your face a
scary.
little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
know, when we crashed the Gen 2 the first time, well, the first time I've had a couple incidences with it since, but, anything anything with the speed sensor affects that as well. So, like, I cut when we crashed, obviously ripped the speed sensor out of the back hub, that instantly activated, like, Christmas tree, and it actually killed all power steering to try and keep you from actually doing something. So I definitely think there's a lot that goes on with that car and, like, from a ECU, TCU type deal, but, I think the easiest way to deal with it is, like you said, Link, Haltech, just get rid of the factory ECU, truthfully.
yep. I think Link is probably gonna be your answer. I would if we're really interested to see what Jeremy Bailey's got a one for a first gen on the way. He's got an FA24 swap in his, um,
Yep.
but running on in a first gen, and we're pretty interested to see what shenanigans we can do with that. And I have a feeling that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
I was so impressed with these cars on the dyno. EFI and Calvin Dotson did a little bit of help just because they really took all of it off of our plate because I was just like, man, I'm not an installer, I can't do it. And
sure.
I mean, these cars on gate, the Gen 2, literally, I think it's like 9 PSI was waking up at like 360. Like the first
Yep.
pull we did, it was like 320, and I'm like, wow, like they're like, "We can keep going." I'm like, "Man, I can't drive this car, like, it's gonna be way too fast." Just gave me 200 horsepower, like, I'm alright, like, let
Yeah,
me
I'm
learn
good.
it
Thanks.
first. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I've
I'm excited for the future of FA24 tuning. I really am.
oh, I couldn't believe it, and, like, you think about it and people are like, "Well, it's expensive to turbo the car," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's not, but, like, it's not cheap," but, like, dude, we have on the Gen 2 for engine mods, it's the turbo kit, an overpipe, and a catback exhaust. That's it in the turbo kit. There's
Exactly.
no we wanted to try it without any fuel system stuff, see how we could get it, like, like, let's learn with the platform, and,
Yeah.
yeah, ethanol and a fuel system will come probably this winter, but, like, there wasn't a lot that we had to do supplemental to
Hey,
that
you're still
kit.
doing that on 93 octane, right?
Yeah, we didn't even do it
That's
on eth
sick.
on Gen 1, we threw ethanol at it, and that car with very similar mods, only injectors and a fuel pump just because of the ethanol, made 320, like,
Yeah.
on gate. Like, literally, we were like, just, like, go right to gate, and that's it. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy how much they pick up, but the FA24 heads, a lot of people think it's all from the displacement. It's not. The heads are significantly better. When you add ethanol to that, you're probably going to be knocking on the door of 400. And
yeah,
then that's going to open up a whole other list of shit you're just going to break.
yeah, we've had our issues. I mean, the cars aren't bad, but, I mean, the transmissions aren't great. Like, they're starting to show their fatigue already. Clutch kicking, these cars are I feel bad every time I push the clutch in, and kick it
Yeah.
because I'm like, this car is just it's crying out, and,
Yeah.
watching Odie drive it, I was like, all right, I think it's good, because he's doing like, second gear standoffs with it and letting it eat off the rev limiter to slow the car. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm being too nice on it, and out there and pushed
It's
it a little harder.
I
And then,
learned.
yeah,
I'm
I
actually
learned.
really stoked to see how much, if you can.
Yeah.
I'd really like to, as you guys keep beating on this thing and breaking other shit. Maybe I would really like to see pictures of the the small failure that you just had. Post them up in the IAG Insiders Lounge. I'd really like to see those pictures so we can all chat about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got a few funny ones already on the list, so I'll throw them in there. The quick shifter disconnect I did, where we ripped the entire shifter right out of the whole body of the kind of
Nice.
connector. So
That's the sort
pretty
of
funny
shit
thing.
I love. Carnage. I love Carnage.
I
I
hated
love
it because
Carnage.
I had one last run and I was like, man, this thing isn't going into gear. I'm like, screw it, let's go. Like, we don't need, just put it in third and go. And came back with the whole shifter assembly completely disconnected. The pin that holds it in is someone at Subaru, rather than nut and bolting, figured a pass-through pin would be fine to hold your shifter on, which it's not. And I'm like, wait a second, this thing doesn't go into gear now, and I got to push it up on the trailer. So struggles of racing, if you
Yeah.
haven't pushed
Oh,
your
I
car on
I
the trailer.
I am so aware of that. The stupid shit that I've broke, I swear. I want to talk about SubiMods a little bit.
Yeah,
So you said you started it in high school. That's awesome. I
yeah.
actually used to work for a guy who started his company out of college, so you beat him by a decent amount, which is super cool. Like, where the idea come from, or like let's talk about the genesis of SubiMods. I want to hear about this a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to put you back a couple years before that just to give you the full picture. So my
Yeah.
father actually used to run a performance shop up here in the late 90s, early 2000s called XX Tuning. And
Okay.
it was really big. Like, I mean, right when the first WRX launched, he's like, getting into it, importing these parts, and his business grew really well through
I
up until
actually
about
think I
08.
know who you're talking about. Was it XS Engineering or Tuning?
Yeah,
Tuning.
so yeah, XX, two X's tuning, and he was
XS.
big in right probably early 2000s, yeah, 2002 to 2007, right before he sold.
Okay.
And so growing up around that, it was pretty destined that I would find this career, right? Because I've been since, like I said, 2002, it's been a part of my life. And after he sold that business, he actually and another partner started an e-com side. Obviously, there's a lot of, new generation, kind of young kids listening. Back in the day, you used to actually have to drive your car to a building and
Yeah,
be
it was
like, yeah, man, put
amazing.
this exhaust on for me. It was a
And then
cool
you'd
time
go
frame.
in and they'd have shit up on the walls and you'd look at it and then you'd hand your credit card over and you
Yep.
wouldn't even think about it.
Oh, yeah, it was a weird looking at how it is today, it's so crazy because I've seen both ends of it, but he moves into doing e-com and starts this idea of SubiMods, right? And he great idea guy, and he put together Subaru and mods and got SubiMods. So I think that's how the name kind of came out.
Sure.
And fast forward some years, I'm an 18-year-old kid who's about to graduate from high school with my D1 career in sports wasn't panning out the way it should have. And
Oh.
I'm completely joking. I was horrible, but
Yeah, I was about to say, what did you
and
play?
yeah, I was playing hockey, but I was horrible. So
It's
it
okay.
wasn't
We've all been bad at something.
wasn't making it to the NHL or
Yep.
anywhere above men's league, but and Harvard wasn't knocking on my door, so I pretty much was like, all right, I'm gonna go work for him for the summer to be able to afford beer, and very quickly kind of found that like I was like, man, like this isn't that bad of a job, like this is actually pretty awesome, like. We had our problems, obviously, things weren't great for him, during those periods of time, letting people run it maybe who shouldn't have. And, people look at businesses from the outside and think everything is perfect, but I mean, you can have a very good looking business from the outside and the entire insides of it be a firestorm every day of just
Oh,
mistakes.
I know
And
all about that. I have to be real. I work here because of that. I work at
Yeah.
IAG because I ran from something that was like that, and,
It
and
takes a toll on
thankfully,
you. It really does.
those who know what I'm talking about out there are gonna deduct what I just said. That
Mm.
that place has 100% made a complete 360-degree flip around fix, and it is infinitely better now. But when I left, yeah, it was a shit show, and it was every single day was awful. And isn't that crazy how like from the outside something can look totally normal and great and like they're just killing it, and on the inside everybody wants to kill each other.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't, say everything at SubiMods is great every day or has been, but like, I have a lot of appreciation for what we've built and that, we have a team that, every day they kind of can come into work and go, they breathe a sigh of relief a little bit, I think, when they walk in, because they know it's not gonna be easy, but like it's like kind of like a home in that way.
Like that's all you can really ask for out of a job. Like, and I think most employees they're more than willing to spill their guts as long as they're treated correctly, and
Yeah.
it's you are looked at like a family and you are respected, with what you're doing and where you're at, and that's good. That's actually really hard to find from an employer.
Yeah,
So
and then
you started this thing up. Well, it's like you and your dad started this thing up, which is super cool. So, did you basically just inherit a lot of his already existing like infrastructure then? Is that how that worked?
yeah, for the worse, probably more than the better, truthfully. I think the one
Yeah.
thing, that people have to kinda understand too is that, like, back in 2011, 2013, when I was starting that era of time, like, Facebook groups weren't a big thing, online was
No.
big, but it wasn't there were only a few players in the game, so, like, you really
Yeah.
worked on the forums,
And
Nosciak,
you had to
IWSTI,
hustle your ass off
ass
in
off.
that time as I used like I said, I used to work for TH Motorsports, and I was
Yeah, you
probably
know how
doing
it is.
Nasdaq ads right against you.
Dude, it's like cutting your teeth on that made me learn so much though. Like I would be like, I wish I could train my guys 2 months of that. Like you'll be a killer after 2
You
months
know,
because like
it's so hard to
it is
find
just
somebody who gets that.
it's gonna kill you like mentally, but you are gonna learn so much so fast. And what was different about the forums to what it is today with Facebook is it was cutthroat, but you really got the sense that the people on the forums were there to at least deliver like really good information. There was a lot of technical stuff. You could find answers to almost anything very
Yeah,
easily. Now it's a little different in the groups, which is why I like what you're doing, where like you're answering technical questions, you're being a part of the discussion, and obviously opinions are always there, but we
sure.
need to start kind of getting back to like, let's
The
lead by information and, like
So there was a time. This was one of the things the forums did really well. For what we're still talking like weird screen names, and nobody
yeah.
knew who your real name was, but you could look through a forum and you'd see the same names responding to questions all the time, and they were all thought out and everything, and that became kind of like you wanted to emulate that a little bit if you were like maybe a new or a younger forum member or something like that. So
Mhm.
you went out of your way to make sure that you typed stuff correctly and your sentences made sense, or you kind of fact checked yourself, or you showed sources, you went and made sure that what you posted made sense. It wasn't just word vomit. And what blows my mind is the forums were like this, where people tried really hard to make themselves sound fairly intelligent. Okay. Now your actual name is attached to you, and you go into a Facebook group and people just word vomit. But the internet forgets in like 3 days max, where the post is just gone, absolutely gone, and you couldn't search for it to find it if you ever wanted to. So people repeatedly get to word vomit, and it's awful. I think
Yeah,
it's done so much damage to the community.
yeah, and I think I try to always train my team too, like around the sense that, hey, like, people are really tied to opinions now, right? Like you find that with like, let's just say, for example, exhaust, right? Someone will say, well, the NVIDIA is the best. And it's like, why? And they're like, well, because I have it. I'm like, all right.
Exactly.
like, like, okay.
Thanks.
Like, I can see that. All right, I get it. But like, that's your opinion because of what you have experienced. So that's fine for you to have that opinion. But when someone goes, I have a remark exhaust, and then that person with the NVIDIA goes, well, you're an, insert expletive idiot,
Yeah, you're
you should have
trash.
bought an NVIDIA. That's when I'm like, okay, now why do we have to go here?
Exactly, and that's again, you really didn't have that on the forums unless there was something really backing it up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if something was legitimately garbage, you would get called out, but there would be some backing for it. People wouldn't just go, "This is trash" because I'm in this group or that group. You know what I mean? Um,
Well, I think it was cool for manufacturers too, because I remember like, Killer Bee back in the day was really active on Nasiak. And anytime they
yeah,
released a product, they do a new post. People would comment on it, ask questions, have criticisms, and like they would just have a dialogue with people. Like, why is this welded this way? Or what is this for? And they would just openly answer the question. It's like now I don't feel like we really get to do that a lot. Like there aren't a lot of things like what you're doing where people can come on and like just have a discussion, you know?
yeah, and that's what this podcast is always meant to be. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but you see the same thing I see, where there needed to be a platform for like parking lot meets just in general are dying. And that's what like the forums died, but at least in the Chicago area, when I was around that area before I moved to Tennessee, we'd have a weekly meet.
Mhm.
And at that meet, we had lots of discussion. Okay. And these, most of the time, it was different shops from the area, and, some of their techs or whatever. We'd all be around, and people would just hit us with all sorts of crazy questions. And that's really the reason we went to the meets, was to answer those questions. And that's why I really like doing this live, because we do have the chat off to the side. I try to answer questions, and then, people post up questions, whether it's in our Facebook group or whatever. And we try to just do your best to communicate with people who have these questions, because if one person has the question, multiply that by 10 every time. And there's just some people aren't willing to speak up, but there needs to be a forum for this, some sort of platform to have these conversations. I wish more places would do things like this, whether it's you guys, other manufacturers, whoever. Flatirons Tuning has got a really good one they're doing too, but I don't want to take anything away from what they're doing, because there's a lot of extremely good information on there, and we kind of have two different vibes. But
Yeah.
I don't feel like I feel like that's kind of discussion within themselves, and you're looking into it, versus
Mm.
discussion with the entire community. I see the same names in our audience like every week, and it's one of my favorite things, because these same people are asking really good questions. They actually keep me on topic, and then like we had to yell at Chris earlier, and it was great. Um,
But it's all around the concept of like, community, right? So like the
exactly.
big thing like I'm campaigning this year at SEMA is like I want more shops to be in the dialogue. I want more communication with my competitors who like customers will come in and be like, "Oh, well, I bought my thing, this part from this guy or this guy." And they feel like weird to say it to me. And I'm like, man, like I'm good. Like, like I want you to continue modifying your car because what keeps me in business is the culture, right? Like
Yes,
at the end of the day, if we do our job right and we do the right work for our business and support the culture, not take from it, we will work with you eventually. So now it's for me coming around and like really trying to like say to these manufacturers and other retailers, like, hey, let's work on the culture so that we have a future with this. Because if we don't develop
exactly.
the culture, then there's no business.
Dude, by the community for the community, and it literally has to be Subarus versus the world, because we are not big enough. We're not big enough to really have inter community violence. We just aren't.
No, and that's been my whole thing was like, man, like for example, at the Subi events we go to, Wicked Big Meat, Boxer Fest, I walk the vendor rows and I just introduce myself to the competitor, what people would consider the competitors. And at first, the first few years I did it, people would look at me a little odd and, what is he doing? Is he, doing recon? And I'm like, no, man, look, like this doesn't have to be like this,
It
like
it
we can
shouldn't be
all
like that.
be friends.
So I love that you did a Subaru only track event. Okay, we had one going in Chicago for a while, and I think they tried to do another one recently. One thing that I've been screaming for a very long time is we need a centralized, or at least like everybody comes to an agreement that this is the inter community pissing match. Okay, I
Yeah,
I
let's go.
I think it needs to happen, and I think you have the right mindset to maybe help me get this thing over the hill. We, I personally, I think we should put it in St. Louis. Has their it used to be called Gateway. I don't remember what it's called now, but they have it's like a NASCAR track, but it has a really good infield course, and they right next to it, or I think on the same grounds, also has a drag strip. And I think we could literally make a Subaru drift track, time attack, drag event all in one spot. Dude, getting the Subi events guys on board with this has been borderline pointless. So we may have to do it ourselves.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I
I
think it'd be
talked with
great for the community.
yeah, and I talked with Khan from Subi Events. He's actually out here as well. And he actually came to the Subaru shootout we did in at Thompson. And what we battle is, and this is, I think, and I don't want to speak for him, but this is some of his opinion, and
Yeah,
because he said this to me. They like the autocross side because the barrier of entry is a lot lower, right? There's less risk. There's less
this
mechanical like
is
hardship.
well. They kind of put that at me too. And here's
Yeah.
actually what they like. One, they don't have to go to a track. Okay.
Yes.
Two, it's very cheap to insure.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I have given them literally the key to the city on both of those. The trick is we have to Chris at Grid Life wants to do this. He has wanted to do this for years. We could do it at Gingerman, that would be easy, but then we lose the drag side of this.
Yeah.
He's open to wherever the hell we want to do this. They would take care of anything on track as far as track, drift, any of that.
Yeah.
They would take care of tickets and everything. You would basically sign up for essentially a Grid Life event through them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
would take care of all of it. The rest of it, the drag stuff, they aren't going to touch. But if it's a drag strip, that's super low barrier of entry and easy. And Subi events literally just needs to show up and do a Subi events event at where we're at. That's it. Just do what you normally do, except you don't got to deal with the autocross or anything. Bring your people, have a good time. You tell me Scott Speed does not want to show up at a Subaru pissing match with his new midnight weapon and throw down. I just don't believe it.
No, I mean, Bucky was there at ours and he had a great time. Just like it's a different vibe. And that's why I did the first Grid Life. I actually worked with Michael Herzin and from Grid Life, and he's a great guy. And
Yep.
we're talking about 2025, which we should definitely connect off the call, and I'll kind of give you some info on what we're doing. But
Cool. If I
Subaru
could
is
be a
going to
part of
be
that, let me know.
Oh yeah, we're hopefully trying to develop it's not going to be a class, because obviously run groups are very specific at Grid Life, and there's not a lot of time to add something in, but we're
You
thinking
would be
about
surprised what we can
basically,
do.
yeah, I think we
We'll
are
talk
gonna
about
try,
this.
yeah, try to have something where there's like how Falcon or the tire companies offer co-ops for, people who use that product. Like, let's do that with Subaru, right? Let's come to the table and sponsor someone's drive with some monetary compensation. It's not going to be the world, but hey, if you compete in Grid Life
Dude,
with a Subaru,
yeah,
you
so
can expect a check from SubiMods for, $300 or something.
yeah, no, that would be sick. And there needs to be more of that. I think Falcon actually used to do something like that, and it was okay. But like half the people didn't get the checks, and like it was yeah, dude. That would be
Whenever I
so
hear stuff
good
like
for the
that, I get
community.
so mad. Yeah, I get
That
so
would be
mad at
so good for the community. If there's something that we could get, if I will if you want help with that. Maybe
Yeah.
we even, yeah, if you want help with that, please, by all means, I want in on that. I'll let you know what'll work and what won't. Let's do it.
Oh yeah.
Yes, great idea.
We really want to be involved in motorsport. We feel, it's a great way to bring our company together too. Like, I mean, my guys really enjoy, like, they were itching to get in the cars at the event, and they kind of like every time the cars pull out of the garage and we do something stupid in the parking lot, they all come running. So it's a cool team building thing too.
Oh, definitely, dude, definitely. And it like we had a rough year this year. I'm not gonna lie, but last year when we won the championship, it was really good for company morale. Like just all around, and it was awesome because we'd have guys, we'd be working late and we'd have some dude from like shipping, hey man, is there something we could do to help with a car? I'll hang out late, what can we do? Everybody was just, they wanted to be a part of it, and it felt like they were a part of it, and they were. Like it took everybody in that company in one way or another to make it happen. Dude, that is so cool when you can do that. It's
Yeah, and
really good for company morale.
it is. And it also, it's funny when you get people kind of like into something new where everyone, like, motorsports is very new for me and our company. Like, so our first couple evolutions were, me showing up with one tire pressure gauge and like, like a
That's
socket
how you
and
gotta
like,
start though.
yeah. But it's gotten a little bit better now, and it's cool to see the guys, like, they load the trailer up, they're loading the tires, all the stuff, and, like, they're not complaining, they're like, "All right, man, like, he has an event this weekend, like, that's cool," it's
Yeah,
fun.
it kind of, even though it's hard work, it ceases to become, at a certain point it really starts blurring the lines of fun and work, and that's perfect. Like that's
Well,
really where you
especially for
want
the
to be.
guys who got to go to grid life too, like, I'm like, "Man, like, Laguna Seca for 3 days? Like,
No,
I don't know if you can call that
yeah, it
work."
could be
Like,
worse.
yeah. It could be, I
uh,
think, again, blessed is a way to put it, like, to be
Blessed
able
is
to
a
have,
great way to put it.
yeah, to be able to have life intersect that way, and then you just meet really cool people like Odie and, a couple
Sure.
other reps that we met out there that, like, you're like, "Man, like, you know what? Maybe we are doing this next year
We
holistically."
100% need to talk off air about some other stuff with that. That is, I'm loving everything I'm hearing about this, and I really would like to see more shops kind of get involved, or companies get involved with their kind of motorsport, stuff. It would really be nice also if some of our maybe our inner community rivalries, I guess would be a good way of putting it, might get settled at the track. You know, because you'd be surprised how fast the bullshit stops when everybody is competing, and you can hug it out in the end. Win or lose, everybody's actually really having a good time. You know what I mean? Playful shit talking is in pushing that is great, but it's great for the community overall too, because then
Like,
you guys are doing neat things, we're doing neat things, somebody else is doing neat things, everybody's following the builds, it's bringing hype to the community. People are going to want to do that themselves. They're showing up at events. It's great. I think it's all great, and more is better.
and I mean, the crazy thing is like, for motorsports and Subaru, if we can do these various activations, like, Subarus do a lot. Like, I mean, if you have
A
the
lot.
Outlander course, the drag strip, the road course, drifting, you're like, man, this is a cool event. Like, that's the vibe that we got. We didn't have, like, thousands of people. We probably had a couple hundred spectators, and
That's
like,
what it needs to be, dude.
throughout
Like
the day, man,
seriously.
people were like, "This is cool." They were like, "Oh, wow, like, all of this is Subaru?" And we're like, "Yeah." And
When
they're
I
like,
saw you guys
"Oh."
had that, I was super bummed I did not know about it. I
And I was like,
desperately
"We
want to
put
try
this."
to do something with you guys next year with that. If you're doing it again, let's talk, okay?
We will. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do it, and we're gonna do it bigger, and my hope is we can do it in different states, and hopefully maybe
Fuck yeah.
that discussion with Grid Life is something that, we can
Yeah.
spur
Well,
that
dude,
too.
again, a lot of this is gonna be a lot of off off air stuff, but yeah, I would love to bounce some ideas off you. Then maybe we can come on here and talk about it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So man, I lost my train of thought. You got me so fucking excited. Um,
Probably SEMA, a little bit on SEMA.
yeah, I definitely want to chat about SEMA a little bit. So you're sitting at you're on the floor at SEMA right now,
Yep.
in Vegas. Have you seen anything that's just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some cool cars there. Is there anything like product wise that's really got you going?
Yeah, I mean, there's working with the guys at ACT. They did some new stuff. They're coming out, ACT Clutch. They're coming out with a couple new products, and
Cool.
we're providing them some data, hopefully, to support the WRX community a little bit better. With some ancillary pieces and some kits, make it a lot easier for customers to, select a clutch that fits their range and keep things available. Because no one wants to wait for a clutch. That's not how that works. ACT is doing some really cool stuff. Cobb's here. They released their VB front mount for the 22 WRX, which has a really like new kind of cool old school Garrett core, and it's a really nice product. So kudos to the guys over there,
Nice.
for another great product for the VBs that not going to be it's just that platform is really cool. That's
It
probably been
is.
my favorite evolution of Subaru, is watching how with an intercooler, an intake and some, basic bolt-ons, the cars can make like 350, 360. It's the best
Yeah,
power to
it's
money
I've seen
car.
dudes with very basic bolt-on stock turbo make 400. I'm like, holy
It's
shit,
insane.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what it costed back then to, in early, let's say 2010, to make 400 on those cars. Like it wasn't easy.
No, you could make 400 with a 20G and ethanol and all the goodies, and you'd get it done, and then it'd break, and you'd put a motor in it. Like you would then put an engine in it. There was no getting
It was
around it.
basically a $10,000 investment for 400
Easy.
easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they
So
they were coming out with a lot, and then I still got to stop by and take a look at some new engine control products. One of the ones you want me to look at and kind of see what's coming out. But this year, man, Subaru, it's not big here. It is not big.
no.
I've seen two Subarus in the whole show,
Yeah, there
and
hasn't
it's
been a ton. I know there's one sitting over at a new wheel brand that's being ran by some of the guys who used to run Motegi, which was a part of Wheel Pros, and well, we all know how that went.
yeah,
Um, and then yeah, I haven't seen much as far as that goes. I know Mtron, we talk a lot about Mtron. Mtron's got a new like kind of like a direct competitor to the Link G4X and like the Haltech 2500 series. So like that like $2,000 $2,500 price range. So they kind of made a like a sub like a more economical priced unit. I'm interested to see how that's gonna pan out. There was some cool stuff announced. A lot of like the stuff that gets us all hyped tends to be dropped at PRI, not SEMA lately, but Cobb making new product is sick. I love seeing Cobb get back on track.
I give those guys some credit. I mean, it must have been very hard to take the flack that they were taking and then not be able to talk about why. You know what I
My God,
mean?
I am. I
And
don't know if you've heard this, but they're the first people. We're the first stop when they're allowed to actually talk about it. We're having a podcast with them on, and we're gonna have a real conversation about that. So make sure you tune in for that one.
yeah, it's I give those guys a lot of credit because I mean I know it wasn't easy. It wasn't
No,
easy for the community. They took the brunt of a our nation essentially um, becoming a little bit subservient to a state, and
yeah,
Bob just
and
took
they took
the they took
they
the bullet
caught
for
the
that one.
brunt of all of it. They literally they jumped on the nade for all of us. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yep. And I mean they, like where would we be today if they didn't, right? Like with the way that things are being enforced now where, into California, we can't even ship a fuel pipe or excuse me, a fuel pump right now.
No,
We won't. And where would the industry be for our California customers if Cobb didn't go after those EOs for this stuff? Because right now EOs are relatively uncommon in
Yeah.
executive orders in the Subaru industry outside of like Cobb and maybe like AEM and
It
K&N, you know.
it that's it. If you want to modify your stuff legally in California, that is it. I got to be real. A lot of the guys who come to me and go, "Hey, you know, I want to do this, that, or whatever. Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm in California." I send them straight to a shop. I'm like, you need to go talk to them to figure out how to navigate this. Like, I'm not from there, and I don't know what you can and can't do or get away with, or how to get any of this stuff. And I got to be real. Like, we got a few dealers out there. I send them straight to the nearest dealer because I don't even want to touch it. To be perfectly honest, I want those guys. They know how to navigate that. You know what I mean?
It's yeah, and and I don't want to get political at all because I've had my fair share of
Yeah.
that
Let's
this week.
not.
But I wish that our administrations looked at this like just not a policy issue, but look at it like a actual like a case, like, hey, all right, what is the effects of what we're doing? Like, what are the global emissions effects of a specific situation, right? And then let's
Yeah.
figure out a path to get through it, but making it complex and attempting to, be like get this like kind of convoluted way of enforcing it to where, you basically just go after a retailer, take their whole business from them, and then the community's left to just kind of like deal with that. I don't think that that's the right way to go about it, but
That drives me up the wall. And the other thing that drives me up the wall is, and I mean, you nailed it right there. That it's, to me, no matter which way that looks, that just smells like a cash grab to me. You
yeah.
know, wherever you land on the political spectrum, that is a cash grab. I'm sorry, that's just what it is. But the uh, the other thing that drives me nuts is, let's take like an 80s Camaro, okay,
Mm,
with tuned port injection, which basically is a carburetor with a slightly more organized fuel leak. Um, and some V8 that gets 10 miles to the gallon guzzling along, and you want to go stick a newer LS in there, which drives great. Okay. The fully proper port injection, significantly more efficient, will get you mid 20s easy. Um, as far as miles per gallon, like, it would be a much more efficient engine. There is no way to do something like that. A lot of the things that they fight are completely ridiculous.
I
And
think ethanol is the craziest one that I see. I see ethanol as, we were talking to Cobb because, they have some things coming out for the VB.
sure.
And, we're like, hey, carb approval. And they're like, carb will do nothing with ethanol. We're not even in the pipeline looking at that. And I'm like,
Oh,
man,
crazy.
like how, like, what do you mean the California is not going to let us convert to ethanol? Like the whole point was that was the whole thing. Like what? Like again, I hate when things are like just unclear, where you're just like, what are you guys doing?
What are your actual goals? And that is, so, like, if the goal is to make the environment better, you're not. If the goal is, like, I don't understand what their aim is on a lot of things, which really sucks. And again, I'm not trying to get political, and to me, I believe this is a very bipartisan argument. Um, it just doesn't make sense. Then you also have the third aspect of this, especially when they're trying to dump on race cars, is you are ruining the next generation of engineers.
Yeah,
Um, that sort
and
of
it's already
tinkering
hard
is
for these
what
companies.
creates incredibly smart people.
Mhm.
So,
And it's not easy. Like, I mean, you look at it, today, like, what is the future of gas-powered vehicles in motorsport even? Like, let's just
mhm,
say, forget the global spectrum discussion, but like in motorsport, like you're starting to see like people get to this point of where it's like, all right, this is getting extremely expensive now, to do this. And
yeah,
you're almost watching like simultaneously the bill going up but having less ability to generate revenue for the bill. And that's affecting everyone because when the companies have less money, well, we can't do sponsorships and help other enthusiasts have race programs like
Oh,
yourself
it's
or
the truth.
whoever. And
But it
it
is
just,
that's why
it
grid
becomes a
life is actually
cyclical
starting to do
problem.
really well because it's kind of a reset button.
Yeah. And I like what grid life does, and I like the vibe there. I like the way that, you watch someone in a, an S2000 show up with four tires cramped in the thing, and you're like, dude, like, you street drove that thing here? And he's
Dude,
like,
it's
yeah,
grassroots
man.
as it gets, man. And yeah, we do some really crazy shit with grassroots based shit, but like it ain't pro. And there definitely ain't pro money in it. And even like the high end guys, we'll say like do sold, that build, that is a crazy expensive build. Ferris Khartoumi, he's not pro. These guys just live this shit. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see companies take a look at that and go, because they see the demographic around it, and you get Grid Life Midwest pulls in 40,000 people. There was
Yeah.
40,000 people at Gingerman last year. That is nuts. I don't even know where the hell they put them. It was insanity. Um, uh, and then you like their first year event. Oh my god! If you guys are going to go to one event next year, you got to go to Road America. By the way,
Yeah.
um,
We had a
they're
tough
pouring
one
a
with
ton of money
Laguna.
into
That
that.
was a tough one for the first one to go to. Laguna
Laguna's
was weird.
brutal, dude. I did it last year. I can't. I just maybe in another couple years I'll go, but I can't. It's just it cost me 10 grand to do that.
Yeah.
And I
I
don't have
couldn't
that.
believe it's beautiful track, beautiful scenery, but I'm like, man, there is no good way to get here.
No. So, but Road America, half the distance for you, maybe even
Yep.
less. Actually, probably quite a bit less. They're pouring a lot. They're gonna try to make that the premier event. This year they had Dead Mouse play.
Yeah.
And they were expecting 15,000 and they cleared almost 30.
That's
Like
insane.
first year event, dude. And they have so much room there, they could put 100,000 people there, no problem. And I don't doubt they find a way to do it.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what's cool about Grid Life is that post-event activation. Like one mistake we made this year was the night of the concert, I was just burned out, so I'm like, man, I'm leaving. And the next day Michael was like, man, you guys should have stayed. Like, that after party isn't
Gridlock's got
for,
a really, really, really good ability to cause FOMO.
oh yeah. And what goes on at those events from the vendor side, I think people really like don't see either, where we're like, hey, like, like at Grid Life, it was like we're talking to the Falcon guys, we're talking to Odie, like
Yeah.
just kind of shooting the shit. Like it was like, oh, like everyone's kind of just like me. Like we're just here to have fun.
Yes. And you get to interact with a lot of these. It was really cool being on the West Coast because I got to chat with some people I don't normally chat to. I mean, I talked to Rob Dom for like 2 hours. You
Yeah.
know, you get to, but the vendors that are going to these things or just different reps, maybe they don't have a booth or something like that, but are there helping whoever. You'd be surprised the kind of connections you can make at a Grid Life event these days.
I mean, we
It's
came
not
home with
just the
three
random
really
dudes
good.
in a Michelin field.
Yeah, no, we came home with three really good, like really good 2025 partners, one being Feel and
Yeah.
Feel Suspension. And like that came from just, you know, oh, hey, what do you guys do? Oh, I do
Yeah.
this. Oh, hey, like Odie's like, you want to come out in the car? And I'm like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
is that like you do that? And he's like, absolutely. And I'm like, all right, let's go.
Have you seen those drift taxi sessions? I think they were doing them there where they take
Yeah.
like drift cars like time attack cars and go out with the drift cars. Oh my god, that's so much fun.
Yeah, so
It's
that's the
so much fun.
demo. That's where we got to go, and like I was just like, man, I don't know, I got to get out of this car because I think I'm gonna like either vomit or I'm gonna
Yo,
try
I'll
to
take you for a
sell
rip and
everything.
boogie if you come to one of these festivals. Okay, we'll go. I
Oh,
will
I'm
pin you
ready.
to the fucking seat. It's a riot.
That's I'm like I feel like I'm gonna get hooked on one thing right now that's drifting, but definitely next year there's gonna be some TA work because I do there are a lot of parallels from drifting to time attack in my opinion because like my brother-in-law always a good drifter, like really really well like thought out. driver for for his age, and he just did time attack at the event we had, and the kid was moving. Like, I mean, it was insane the lap
Well,
times he was putting down.
one of the
And
things you get from being a drifter is you're very good at understanding A, where grip is at, and B, where the weight of the car is at.
yeah, and
Those are
like
two really hard things to teach.
his driving technique, right? There's a lot of heel toe in drifting. There's a lot of, like kind of throttle balancing and brake balancing. So like he was just blistering out there, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, do I want to go out there? I was like, I'll do drifting today. I don't want to. I don't want to bend our WRX and ruin it for the rest of the day.
Awesome. I yeah, there's been some guys who transition really, really well with that. Dai Yoshihara is a really good example of that. Dai transitioned fantastically.
Yeah,
Um,
because you drive the same line. The same line that you guys drive is the same line we'll drift. It's not.
sure.
It's
I
not
mean, a
really much.
racing line is a racing line. You're trying to open it up as much as you can. That's a racing line. I mean, there's some nuance to it, but it's a racing line. Understanding where your car's at and where you can hammer on it and where you can't, and understanding how that line. There's not much difference. I mean, drifting actually, like, literally came from, um, people liking the look of Japanese dudes sliding around on bias ply tires and like the older Japanese touring car stuff, and people trying to emulate it up on like mountain passes and shit. And just trying to get as far out as they could to look like the guys who were on TV. That's literally where drifting came from. Was a kind of a sub form of like touring car racing. Just it was the fastest way around a corner with an old shit tire.
Yeah, and it's fun, and it's motorsport. Things are gonna happen. We're gonna have issues. Cars are gonna break, but
You're gonna break
there is
shit. It's
something.
what it is, dude.
There is something to be said about the adrenaline rush that you get. I like forget to eat. I'm not drinking water.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I got to get out there. It's like, all right, man, you got like 8 hours. Calm down. You'll do enough driving.
Um, yeah, dude, we're gonna have to hook up. We're gonna have to hook up this season and hang out a little bit. I'm
Absolutely.
really, really stoked. Do you have a simulator yet?
Oh yeah, that's how I actually learned how to drift on the
All
sim.
right. You messing around with iRacing at all?
I'm gonna start.
Okay.
I've got
The
to we bought
GR86 Cup is really good on iRacing. You want to come party? I managed to bust in. I'm the 21st. I'm 21 in the world right now, and like I want some of my homies to come try to get up there with me. They hold. So I'm not trying to brag. It's a little humble brag. I'm kind of proud of this, and I want to make sure I said something on here. 21st in the world right now, and they hold records all the way down to 10,000. So I'm doing okay, and I want more people to come try this because it's a freaking riot.
Oh, I'm on it. I'm definitely not gonna. I'm gonna be closer to the 10,000 level
Get
than
there,
the
bro. Get
23.
there. No, you need a team to really go hard, man. And I'm telling you, we'll put it together. We can
I,
do like turn-in concepts. You know those cats down in Cincinnati.
yeah, Clinton
A
Tony.
lot of their drivers and stuff, they got together and they have like matching livery cars and all, and like when they do the grid life iRacing series stuff that they do over the winter, which you should get in on. It's a lot of fun. They have matching liveries and stuff for that. I'm just saying we can get together, make an IAG SubiMods like bro livery, and we can trade setups and things. It'll be great. Come on, we'll have a good time.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm gonna need something to do over the winter, so
Good for you.
I'm ready. Right? There's no more motorsport in the winter unless we go to
You want to have a
Mexico.
really good time in the winter? It's going to be a hell of a hike for you guys, but I swear to God, you got to come do it. Grid Life almost every year runs one ice racing event up in Wisconsin. It
I
is
believe it or not,
so
someone told me
much
that they were like
fun.
do ice racing and do like because there's some places in Vermont near VSC that when it
Do it.
freezes, they do like drift course on the ice, like stud the tires and go out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that.
Most of the time they run 4 different classes. It's like snow tire, 2-wheel drive, snow tire, 4-wheel drive, and then studded 2-wheel drive, studded 4-wheel drive. If you have an all-wheel drive vehicle, do snow tire all-wheel drive. It's a drift. the entire time. It is so much fun. Don't get me wrong, you'd have fun in the 2-wheel drive car, but the all-wheel drive car, you're gonna have a freaking riot. It's the most fun you can have doing the least amount of damage.
That's like the funny thing about it. I equate it. So like when we go drifting, when it rains, you watch the line for grid die. No one wants to drive in the rain. But
Yeah.
I love it because in the rain, and I feel like on the ice, it's going to be the same way. You have to be so good. Like if you can drive in the rain well, you're going to drive in the
You can
dry.
drive anywhere well.
Yeah, everywhere.
So it's a little different. One of the things that it kind of gets sketchy with certain vehicles in the rain is the traction is it's like an on-off switch. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't on track. So it's very inconsistent, and the inconsistency, like the levels of traction between the two, are drastically different. Ice racing, like it's slippery everywhere, so you kind of know it's slippery, and it goes from a little bit of grip to no grip, but it transitions smoothly. So like you kind of know, it's very easy to see where there's grip and where there is not. It's very easy to understand that. And so it's really approachable. It's everything you wish driving on the dirt is when you go ice racing. It is so fun. Oh my god, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Maybe we'll get connected through this winter, and we'll go up Vermont,
Dude,
and maybe
let's do it. Oh
bring
my
out the
god,
cars and
let's
let's
race.
have some
Bring this
fun.
shit out. God, we'd have a good
Oh
time.
yeah.
We could be like I'll get out there, probably drag Foster and Dylan out there. We can hook up with the 6-star motorsports guys, and like we could it just be a big ass Subaru screw off.
Just have a good just and freeze to death. That's my thing. I'm like, I hate the cold now, but
yeah, the beauty of it is you just sit there in your car if you're cold. Most of the time guys are bringing tents out there with heaters in it. You're fine, dude. I'm from Michigan, so it doesn't really like bug me that much. But you put on the right clothes, you're fine.
Oh yeah, I'm coming out like I'm going to the North Pole easily.
Yep, that's the right way to do it. Just all right, man. Well, I know you got a lot of stuff you need to get done. I am super stoked you came on here. I'm just mega stoked you came on here.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate you tolerating the audio as well and my background noise. I'm trying to.
I didn't hear any of it. Not a single time did we hear anything. So I think you're totally fine on that.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, dude, this was great. We definitely have to hook up again, and I really want to talk off air about some more motorsports oriented stuff. What you're trying to organize, and if there's anything we could do on our end to help out with that. So,
absolutely,
dude, this was great. If people are trying to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do it?
So company wise, obviously at SubiMods on the socials, support at SubiMods. You need anything, have any issues, questions, or want to talk.
SubiMods. So anybody who's listening who doesn't know who you are for whatever reason, which at this point I'd be blown away if they didn't, but spell it.
So SubiMods, no E. That's the only thing you got to remember with that. Yes. And then if you need me personally, reach out to Dewey, and we can get connected. And I'm always
hit me up. If you think you need him, you hit me up first.
Sorry, I put you in that one, but that's the best way to say it.
You guys are killing it. I know our wholesale department loves you. So
shout out to Ken. Ken is my boy. Ken's awesome.
Ken's good people, man. And we're gonna Black Friday's coming soon. Okay. I'm sure you guys are going to be running all sorts of crazy stuff. We're going to be running all sorts of crazy stuff. So it should be a really good time. And dude, like I said, we got to do this again. Thank you again for taking time, from your SEMA excursion to chat with us. Cause this is great. And we definitely need to do it again.
Absolutely, we will. Again, thank you to all the listeners as well, and to you for putting this on. Like we said, this is really cool what you're doing. So I really like what you're doing. So we will look to be a part of it in the future, and keep it going.
Good, man. Stay in contact.
Awesome. Have a great night, guys.
Yep, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun, and we will see you next time.